Are we ready? Spotlight demo. Just housekeeping. If you can't hear, grab one of the little headphones behind you. Rocco's going to kick us off. Our next demo is how Agentic AI is redefining the insurance industry. Welcome, Rocco.
Thank you, Michelle, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. I know we're kind of close to dinner time, so I promise this is going to be short enough so we can actually go all and enjoy the rest of the evening. So what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about Gen AI in insurance, but before we get to that point, I need to kind of explain a little bit what is the context for this. So traditionally, when we talk about actuarial modeling, the focus is on model accuracy, building models and making sure that the models are actually correct and produced, especially if we're talking about pricing models, which is where this particular solution is typically focusing on. Well, while in the past, this was the focus was more about the accuracy, today is more about being responsive, meaning how long does it take to make a model that is being built and put into production? Because that time to market is really what makes a difference. Today you have pressures from regulatory perspective, you have pressure from regulators or from the competition, you have price sensitivity from customers that they are jumping literally every 6 months to whoever is the provider that can provide the best coverage at the cheapest price. So you have to be able to quickly adjust your pricing, determine what are the conditions in the market, and bring these models back into production. So executives are more and more asking the question, how long does it take before a model can become production ready? So actuaries typically have kind of 3 main directions that they're being pulled on. On one side, as we just said, is about being fast. How quickly can we bring a model to market? Well, on the other side, we want to have models which are as predictive as possible, and they can, because if you have a better prediction, it means you can actually put a better premium, and so you don't have to increase your margin too much to cover for potential losses that might occur in the future. So the more accurate is your pricing, the more you can be competitive. However, to be accurate, you need to actually spend more time building a model. So these 2 levers already kind of conflict with each other. And then the third piece is always the governance. And governance, anytime you build a model, you want to make sure that it is governed correctly, all the way from inception to its retirement. And coincidentally, I just gave a presentation about model risk management. So if you ever are interested in model risk management, please come and visit us at the financial service area, and happy to talk about the governance aspect of these models. So enough for the plug. So let's get back to our business. So what happens is that there is essentially friction, right? And this friction comes when the knowledge, the configuration, the deployments of the models actually are disconnected. This is because in many organizations, a model is developed by a particular developer, then there's an IT department that takes this model and converts it into a rate-making system that basically can be used for real-time quotes. And usually throughout the whole life cycle, from discovering what are the products, all the coverages that are available within the system, understanding what are the models and the logic of each of the various components, you have to then look at what are the parameters, change the assumptions of the model to see whether they can be more predictive or less predictive. You have to configure the rate books, and you have to configure all the decision flows, because it's not just about the pricing itself, it's also about what are the additional decisions that need to come on top of it that determine what the final premium should be paid by the customers. Obviously, once you have these models, you have to test them. So you have to test the performance, you have to test actually what is the impact on the premium, and you may also want to do some optimization to make sure that the price sensitivity is factored in. And then finally, once you're ready to deploy this model, obviously you have to kind of make it available in a live system. Typically, each of these sections that you see in this chart are done by different divisions, different parts of the insurance companies. What we have within the SaaS dynamic actuarial modeling solution is actually covering each and every one of these points in a single unified application, all the way from developing the models to put them into production with a single click, without having to recode that model. This is the most important part. When I used to work at a bank, and I used to develop models for credit risk And usually by the time we had validated and built a model, it took about a year for the IT department to convert the model into a technology that could be actually used within the bank. By the time the model was in production, the model was already old. We had to go and start the process over and over again. So the ability to take a model from inception to deployment without changing the code, that is game changing. And this is what the dynamic actuarial solution is offering. So how do we reduce the friction? Well, besides the technology itself, today I want to show you the AI Copilot. And this is really, I'm actually quite excited because it simplifies a lot all of the process that you would normally have to go and change all the parameters, configure the system, configure the rules, configure the decision flows. All of these aspects are handled directly by the Copilot. All you have to do is talk to it and say what it is that you want to do. From discovery, for example, tell me what are all the products that I have available, to explain to me what are the details, what are the loadings, what is the formula specific for a particular model, to obviously configuring and deploying in these scenarios, generating test case data, and obviously even create bundles of coverages. If you want to test, for example, a product which has multiple coverages to have a better discount, you can actually test these combinations together within the Copilot. Now, Copilot accelerates the process, but does not take ownership of it. The ownership still remains with the actuary. So you still have full control of the decision and the governance aspect of it. Obviously, we have removed the more tedious part of the process of having to know the technology and having to go and configure all the different aspects. So what I'm going to show you right now is a demo of the application. And what you're seeing is essentially this is a dynamic actuarial modeling solution where on the left side is you have a list of the products which are currently defined in this demo environment, and on the right side you have the SaaS via Copilot, which is basically a chat area you can open and close whenever you need it. So the very first question that we're going to ask the Copilot is, well, can you tell me what are all the models which are relevant for, which are all the products which are related, for example, to home prices? And the system is going to query all the products that are available right there. And you can see that we have about 4 of them which are home price, and there was one that was a car price. And obviously the model is just returning the first 4, which are the one relevant for our system. Now, of course, this is a simple example. We only have 5 products in it, but if you have hundreds of them, this becomes way more relevant. The next question is, okay, well, take one model and tell me what are the loadings, what are the details, and what is the premium formula that is applied to that particular model. Because I may actually want to go and test different assumptions or perhaps change some of the parameters. So what we're going to ask the system is, can you configure a new product based on the one that we just seen? But this time I want to change the margin from 8% to 10%, and I want to remove a one-timer component from the formula. So what you're seeing at the top right now is the previous margin was 0.08, so 8% on top of the premium, and as a result of this new configuration, the margin has been changed to 10%. So what happens is that the system is actually configuring underneath all the various parameters. It knows all the various formulas that govern a particular product, and it can go and create a decision flow that you can then go and put into production. So we'll see in a moment how this one is done. So the first step is the system is asking for confirmation whether we actually want to create this product, and then after that we're going to, what you're seeing here is a decision flow is actually being created. So what we're seeing as soon as the page refreshes is that the model at the top, the Home Basic 26Q1, is the new product decision flow that can be used for performing a decisioning. And essentially, what we're seeing here is the base premium at the top, and then on the second component is the portion that includes all of the loadings, the margin, and all the parameters that we've actually specified within our new configuration. But this is not enough, because right now we have a decision flow, but it's not yet in the testing environment. So yes, we just defined we are in development mode, but we have not yet published this model to be able to test it. So the next step is to say, okay, can you please publish it? So it's going to take this model and deploy it into a container application that can basically run in real time. And so we are, after that, as soon as we refresh, we can see that the model is going to appear. So now the model has been published, and this means we can actually test it. we can trigger a REST API to basically send some data for a customer and see what the premium would be as a result of this new product. So what we're actually asking is to use the Copilot to say, can you generate some sample data? And the Copilot is actually now investigating what the actual product is made of, what are the parameters, what are the inputs for that particular product, and is going to generate some sample data to test that particular product. We can also say, well, can you actually generate 3 more use cases and compare the premium between these 3? So the Copilot is not only generating 3 different use cases, but it can also give us what is the difference, what is driving the premium in these 3 different use cases. So as you can see, this is a kind of an iterative process where you can ask questions, test the model, test the parameters, and the Copilot is actually helping you in each one of these particular use cases. Now, so far we only looked at a particular product, but what if I want to actually create a bundle where I have, as you were seeing on the left side, we had the basic home, but we also wanted to add, for example, hail and fire coverage. Well, we can ask the system to actually create a bundle, and the system is basically right now is creating a new decision flow, which we can then obviously later we're going to publish, and we're going to test again to see what the new premium is. So first of all, we can see here the decision flow. So as you can see here, it's a cascading of all the 3 different coverage components that have been automatically created by the system. I didn't have to change anything manually. Everything has been done by the Copilot. Next step is to publish it and test against a particular address. In this particular cases, because obviously if you're doing hail or wildfire, you need to have a specific geographical location to be able to test the premium. So the system is actually testing it. But what's important is that it doesn't just give us the total premium. It gives us the breakdown of each of the individual coverages of the particular product. So as you can see, the system can help us not just to create new products, or test different products, but also understand what are the components in each of the coverages which are part of the bundle that we just created. And so, to conclude our demo today, the objective here is basically not to just have a better actuarial model, which I believe we do have already this capability within the system, but it's more about providing an end-to-end ecosystem and make the actuarial intelligence executable, meaning that we want this to be safer, because the fact that the system actually makes these changes for you, it means you don't have to do any malintervention, which could turn into mistakes or issues that could be introduced within the process. It is quicker because, as you can see, we just simply ask a question without having to touch anything. And most importantly, this can scale because you can test your new products and put them into production with a single click without any new recoding of the model into a different technology. So thank you for listening, everyone, and I'm here if you have any questions. Otherwise, again, please come and visit us at the financial service booth.